Let's talk about French numbers. What are the things you should know? I already made a video on how to say your phone number in French. You can check here or check the description. I also made a video on how to count in French from 1 to 1 million. I made a video, you can check the description. But today I just want to tell you some things you should know, even if you're not a beginner, that will help you. Now, you know that in English, we use the full stop, the decimal point, to separate the whole number from the decimal. So we say 1.2, 2.4 million, 5.2, 5.7. However, in French, you use a comma instead. So if I wanted to say 1.2 in French, I would write it like this. While in English, I'll write it like this. Did you get that? Let's put that in context. If I wanted to write 1.2 million, now in French, I would write it like this. And in English, it will look something like this, 1.2 million. Now, how would I read this in French? I'll say 1,2 million, 1,2. So 2.4 in French, I would say 2,4. Okay, 5.7, 5,7. Also, to separate hundreds from thousands and thousands from millions and so on, in English, you just write a comma. Okay, so if I want to write 1,000, in English, I'll write it like this. You can say 1, a comma, then 3 zeros. However, in French, this means 1 because anything after the decimal point is 0. Okay, so in French, this is just 1. But to write this in French, I just leave a space. So I leave a typographical space like this. So this is how you write 1,000 in French. This is how you write 1 million in French. Don't put a comma, okay? In English, we'll put a comma to separate the thousands from millions. But in French, just leave the space or you put a dot, okay? But to be safe, just put the space, okay? So this is how you write 1 million euros in French. And this is how you write it in English. Same thing if I wanted to say 2,500. In English, I will write it like this. In French, I leave a space or I put a dot. Next thing you may want to know, 100 in French is 100. 100, okay? 100, 100, 100. You don't need to put un before 100. So you don't say 100. Just say 100. Now, when it's 200, then you say 200. But now you put S at the end of 100, okay? Even though the S and T are silent, but when you're writing, you put the S, okay? 200, same for 300, you say 300, okay? However, when you say 250, for instance, then the S disappears. So you say 250. The S disappears. Now, this is just noticeable when you're writing. Of course, when you're speaking, no one will know whether there's S or not. But I think it's just something you should know. If I wanted to say 320, say 320. 320. I need to omit the S in 100. Why? Because there's a number that comes after 100. But if I was just saying 300, then I need to put the S. On the other hand, 1,000, 1000, okay? So 1,000 in French is 1000. Like in 100, you don't say 1,000, okay? Just say 1000. Unlike 100, 1000 doesn't take S. So even if you say 2,000, 2000, you don't put an S. Just say 2000, okay? 2020, 2020, okay? No S. 2024, 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. Okay, so 1000 never takes an S. And it's never preceded by an indefinite article. So you don't say 1,000,000. However, you say 1,000,000 for million. Okay? So if you wanted to say 1 million, you don't just say million. You say 1 million. 1 million. 2 millions. 2 millions de dollars. 2 millions d'euros. 2 millions de personnes. So if you wanted to say 10,000 people, say 10,000 personnes. 10,000 personnes, not 10,002 personnes. But for million, if you want to say 1 million people or 1 million inhabitants, you say 1 million d'habitants. 10 million inhabitants, I'd say 10 millions d'habitants. But if I want to say 10,000 people, just say 10,000 personnes. So you can see for million, you add the deux. So if I want to say $2,000, $2,000. But $2 million, $2 million, $2. Did you get that? Let's take euros. If I want to say 3,000 euros in French, I would say 3,000 euros. 3,000 euros. But if I wanted to say 3 million euros, I would say 3 millions d'euros, D apostrophe. 3 million euros, 3 millions d'euros. Now let's talk about approximates, okay? Let's say you want to say about 10 people were present, about 20, about 100. In French, we use the expression une dizaine. Une dizaine de, that's about 10. Une vingtaine de, that's about 20. Une trentaine de, about 30. Now, how would you say about 100? Une centaine, okay? Une centaine de, okay? Plus the complement. So if I say, il y avait des centaines de cafards dans sa chambre. Il y avait des centaines de cafards dans sa chambre. Means there are hundreds of cockroaches in this room. Okay, cafard means cockroaches. Okay, so des centaines de, hundreds of. Des dizaines de, tens of. Okay, but if I say une dizaine de, that's about 10. Une centaine de, that's about 100. Same thing I can say des milliers de, that's thousands of. So if I say il y en avait des milliers, il y en avait des milliers, I mean there were thousands. I can say il y a des milliers de cafards, il y a des milliers de voitures, il y a des milliers d'appartements, il y a des milliers de personnes. I've written a full lesson on this on my blog. You can either scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description if you like more examples and a detailed explanation. Merci d'avoir suivi cette vidéo et on se retrouve bientôt. À très vite.